Welcome back, everybody, to Eagle Countdown. You're watching in these breaks. I hope you see we're watching. I hope you're realizing you're seeing some of these messages. One was from Dr. Ben Carson. Did you just say Ralph Reeds was in there? No, who was in there?
Gary Bauer.
Gary Bauer. Sorry, Gary Bauer was in there. Lots of great messages from folks that are talking about promises kept. Excuse me, I'm getting texts from people that are watching, which is good. If you have questions or comments, whatever medium you're on, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, on Twitter, whatever, send us messages. Also, info@phyllisschlafly.com, info@phyllisschlafly.com. This is, our Eagle Countdown is kind of a 2020 replacement for our Eagle Council, which we had to delay until January of this coming year, 2021, because of all the silly rules and all. But we want to make sure we got together. And earlier in the program, if you heard, we talked about voter integrity, the election. True the Vote's founder and leader, Catherine Engelbrecht, was with us. We just had a discussion with Rachel Bovard of the Internet Accountability Project on how big tech has got their thumb on the scale and the policy issues. And of course, we're talking about the number one issue in a way, because of what's happened, the Supreme Court vacancy and some of the issues around that. So we've got a period. I asked two of our Pennsylvania leaders, Ned Pfeifer and Dave Moylan, who Dave is up towards Scranton, and Ned is a Pittsburgh guy, but he lives in Philly now. But both of them actually have been working for the Phyllis Schlafly Eagles in Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania Eagle Forum, and both now actually serve on our board. I don't think that we didn't think of that at the time when this happened. But so welcome, Ned and Dave. Dr. Dave Moylan, let me ask you first about Pennsylvania. They say it's a swing state. It could go either way. What's it look like in terms of the upcoming election? What's the intensity? What we should say, he's also the elected coroner. What county?
Schuylkill County.
Schuylkill County, sorry. Elected coroner. What's it look like up there?
I'm very encouraged from what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
In 2016, our county and some of the adjacent counties went big time for the president. Uh-huh. And there were a plurality of about 30,000 votes. And when I was driving around the last couple of weeks, those Trump signs, they're popping up
everywhere,
like mushrooms after a spring shower. So it's very encouraging.
Yeah. Ned, how about Pennsylvania? I mentioned earlier, a decade ago or so, a targeted effort helped elect some more conservatives to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Then they rolled them out. The Democrats won. Supreme Court of Pennsylvania keeps making trouble, right? They redid the congressional districts, then they redid, they're doing this early voting. How worried are you about this early voting, the mail-in voting and early voting stuff?
Well, I'm just hoping that in Pennsylvania we can find a way to cut it off. I don't know how. I wish Phyllis were still alive. She'd probably have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
A lot of ideas.
Uh-huh.
But I just want to say, by way of introduction, that in 2009 I sold my company, and Phyllis asked me to become president of Pennsylvania Eagle Forum, which I did. And with Phyllis's help, in 2010, we upset 5 incumbent Democrats in the House of Representatives. With Republican congressmen. Not all of them were as conservative as we'd hoped. And in 2012, we upset another incumbent Democrat. So we had, until 2018, we had 13 of 18 Republican congressmen in the House of Representatives representing Pennsylvania. And we also had a Republican senator, Pat Toomey, which we elected again in 2010 with Phyllis's help. Phyllis was a great friend of Pat Toomey's. So we've been working very hard to continue that Republican dominance in Pennsylvania. And in 2016, Phyllis died September 5th, but we were successful, I think, in reducing the Republican vote in Philadelphia, which Philadelphia is very Democratic, and voted heavily for Barack Obama in his two elections. But we did reduce the vote, the Democratic vote, in Philadelphia in 2016 from what it was when Obama got elected, and we were very successful in doing that. And I hope we can do that again in 2020.
We're getting folks from our Eagle Countdown who are on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter asking questions, and so feel free to fire them in. Again, we're talking with Ned Pfeifer. Ned is our Pennsylvania Eagle Forum leader, although Stan Casasio will be down tomorrow. He's also one of our leaders. He'll be with us tomorrow. And Dr. Dave Moylan, who is the elected coroner of Schuylkill County and has his own practice also there. So I've got a message from one of our viewers saying, are you all in Pennsylvania getting regular people involved in the election board as in your counties? Now, you would have been, Dr. Dave, you were on the ballot, so you know how important it is to make sure the guys and gals counting the votes. In your county, maybe you don't need to because it's a one, but
we have a strong grassroots movement there.
Yeah.
A lot of people are getting involved, particularly this year. It's the election of our lifetime.
Right.
But I just want to comment that Ned has been a friend since 2014. I feel like I'm joining a club between Phyllis, you.
Yeah.
That was the year I ran for Congress unsuccessfully.
Yeah, that's right.
I should explain that Phyllis's mother and my mother were sisters.
Yeah, that's right. And
Phyllis and I were first cousins. We actually grew up together. She was born in 1924. I was born in 1932. We had dinner practically every Sunday night, our families. So I've known Phyllis for eons.
Ned doesn't. Ned, I don't know if he likes it or not, but I usually tell the story, of course, that on the famous night that H.G. Wells did the radio commentary, The War of the Worlds, on a Sunday night. Young Phyllis Schlafly, I don't know what year that was. Jordan will look it up and tell me. But
probably 1938.
38, is that what it was? So she was about 14 and you were 6 or whatever.
Right.
Phyllis was babysitting Ned Pfeifer when H.G. Wells tried to turn the country upside down. Did kind of turn it for a bit, but back to Pennsylvania. Turn the country upside down now. What do you got? What is the Toomey of the world and the congressional leaders, and not that many in there? What are they doing? What are you thinking about in terms of the mail-in voting, in terms of the voter irregularities? I mean, the signals have come from the powers that be on the left that they're going to try to cause chaos. What's happening in Pennsylvania?
Well, Dave, you may know more about this than I do. I don't know exactly what the rules are about the mail-in voting and how long it would take.
I'm reasonably worried on this, and the rules are changing
Every day.
by the hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I did want to comment on when I was running back in 2014. I was trying to take out a sitting congressman,
Right.
Matt Cartwright.
Yeah.
And he's still running. He's still in there.
Yep.
He claimed to be pro-life. His pro-life voting record at that time was 0%. I think it's up to 17%. Wow. But he's being challenged this time. I think the candidate is Bognet. I think he's got a reasonable chance. And this was in a Trump district. Trump prevailed in Cartwright's district, so he's one of those 30.
You're up not far from Scranton, which is Joe Biden's hometown. Does Joe Biden get much traction in your neck of the woods?
I think he's going to be struggling if the yard signs are any indication.
I wanted to ask you, we were talking outside, we're talking with Dr. Dave Moylan, who is one of our leaders in Pennsylvania on our board, and Ned Pfeifer. You mentioned as coroner. So what's and you're a physician, a medical doctor. What's the reality of coronavirus deaths? Well, tell us I know you said you get a snapshot of a county, and Schuylkill County is pretty rural, right?
We are rural, and I think we've dodged a bullet. We've seen maybe 55 deaths, which is pretty small. Our county's also not that small. It's about 142,000 people. But that's not been our problem the last 6 months. What we're seeing is almost a doubling of drug-related deaths.
Because of the people staying home, partly?
That certainly could be one explanation.
Wow.
But I am encouraged in that we're seeing our local police, our state police, our local DA are taking more of an interest in this. And I think there was, we were having a conversation outside about Singapore. Singapore had a unique approach to the drug problem. And in the 1970s, they came up with the Misuse of Drugs Act, and they made it a capital crime to to be a drug trafficker. You only had to have 2 ounces of marijuana or a gram of hashish, and you were a drug dealer, and they would execute people, and that certainly took the problem away.
Yeah. Tomorrow we're going to have someone out of the White House. I believe we're going to have someone from Peter Navarro's office. And one of the things that the deaths you talk about from opioids, fentanyl is almost exclusively produced by the Chinese and shipped in through Mexico. And it has, you could tell me better, it kills people. It's a terrible thing.
We see a lot of fentanyl toxicity, and you can kind of track what might be diverted medical fentanyl by other chemicals that are in it, and you can spot, by and large, an illicit dose of fentanyl. And I'm seeing unbelievable levels in the bloodstream. When somebody's wearing a medical patch, say of 100 micrograms, it would give you a level of 3.8. We're seeing, I just saw one of 150, which would bring down an elephant. And the fellow that died in Minneapolis, I've spoken to our pathologist, and he had on firm evidence that the level was 11, which is 4 times what you'd see in a medical case. And he was essentially a dead man walking. There's no coverage. All right,
as you know, we're talking on Eagle Countdown. We're talking about, the title is America on the Brink, and we're preparing for the election. With all that has to do with elections, has to do with people voting and all. But we also are talking about what in the Trump administration, almost 4 years in, we've talked about promises kept. From your standpoint, Dave, when President Trump was running and now he's in office, what's your favorite promise kept, the thing he's done that has meant the most to you?
We had just heard it from one of your other speakers, but he's the pro-life champion. He's championed that cause.
Yeah.
And I think that's his number one contribution.
I think his number one contribution is that he told Phyllis Schlafly who would be on his list of Supreme Court appointees, and he has appointed 2 of them.
Yep.
And the same people are on the list that he's thinking about appointing right now for the replacement for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think that's one of his most important contributions to the...
Well, and to flesh out that story, on March 11, 2016, there was a side room off of in the Peabody Opera House in downtown St. Louis, Ned, your old hometown, and on the side room, a dressing room about the size of this table. And myself and Phyllis Schlafly and then candidate Donald Trump met. And in that conversation, about 20 minutes, Phyllis Schlafly said, I need you to appoint good judges like Scalia and who had passed away already, and Justice Thomas. And Trump said, I will, and had that conversation. And then also the platform. Phyllis asked, candidate Trump said, I've worked my whole life to get this platform conservative. Will you support it in Cleveland when you get there, if he gets a nomination, which she thought he would? And he said, yes, I will. And of course, in Cleveland, when Phyllis was, you were there, you both were there.
Yeah, we were both there.
And Phyllis got this great platform. Trump supported it. And all these years later, it's still in effect. And so it was an extraordinary conversation. And as you say, he promised it. He kept the promise, which in politics is about as different as most things.
Well,
but it's been...
Phyllis got President Trump to... she was one of the first people to endorse him, one of the first conservatives to endorse him. And he got him to agree to 2 things, to appoint judges like Scalia and to support the Republican platform.
Right.
He did both those things. And he was so close to Phyllis that when Phyllis died on September 5th, President Trump insisted on coming to his funeral.
Yeah.
And I have a picture of you and me, and I'm holding out my thumb, promising in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
After her funeral.
Yeah, that's right about now. 4 years ago, right about now,
right.
Just a few days ago, she had died. And that's right.
That was in 2016.
Yep, that's right.
And he was there. I have a picture of it, and we did deliver Pennsylvania.
We did deliver Pennsylvania. All right, here's a question from one of our... Sam from Facebook says, in your eyes, is Pennsylvania definitely going to be either Trump or Biden? You know, is it one of them going to win, or is it still a toss-up, and is it going to be razor thin and chaos? What's your sense?
Well, I think with the support of the northeastern part of the state and the central part, G.T. Thompson's area, I think, and in fact the western part, other than just Allegheny County, I think we have enough Republican votes that we can carry Pennsylvania again in 2020, just as we did in 2016, especially if we can minimize the Democratic votes for Biden in Philadelphia, in the Philadelphia area.
Pennsylvania is a big gun state, And in fact, the day after the Monday after Thanksgiving, the state shuts down because of the hunting people. So I'm hopeful that NRA and the
Second Amendment supporters are going to stick with it.
The other factor, I think, is that Pennsylvania is now the largest producer of natural gas in the world, and people, the Democrats and the liberals are coming out saying we cannot have any more fracturing. Well, fracturing has resulted in the natural gas production being as high as it is,
right.
And there's a huge employment of people in that natural gas industry, and I think that's the other factor that's going to carry or help to carry.
Well, and Biden knows what you're saying. He's been flip-flopping, trying to flip-flop on it. He said he was against it. He said now he's not going to be for it, but he won't ban it or something. It's crazy. It's a crazy thing to try, but I think you're right. How about another question? How much of a concern is races being stolen by fraud in Pennsylvania? Maybe the better way to ask that is how many of your congressional races or others are overlapping enough with Philly and Pittsburgh where the jurisdictions might have election day chaos? What's your thoughts on fraud in Pennsylvania?
Well, when we lived in Pittsburgh, from 2009 until we moved to Philadelphia, we were poll watchers in Pittsburgh, and we watched very carefully. We were assigned to various polls and watched very carefully, and we saw some fraud, and we also got some lawyers involved in that fraud, and they corrected it. So I'm hoping that the poll watching group will watch for that fraud and keep it being corrected.
How worried are you?
I predict that election law lawyers are going to be busy for a week or two after the election
in Pennsylvania. Yeah, because of Philly and Pittsburgh and everywhere else. Yeah, it is. It does seem likely. I mean, earlier again. All right, then. So the next question is, if your favorite Trump, I asked this if everybody's on, your favorite Trump success, we got that, promise kept. What should voters do? What's the average, not voters, what's the average person? You're talking to a newly interested person who says, I care about the issues you care about, Dave. I want to go out. What do you tell them to do right now for the next 42 days? Don't say buy ammo. Don't say buy ammo. You already covered that one.
I was just reading a biography of the famous untouchable Eliot Ness, who actually died in upstate Pennsylvania.
Huh.
But when he
not of COVID.
No, in the 50s he died. But it's turned out he wasn't registered to vote. This law fighter.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I think he corrected it, but that was in his 30s. So get out, register to vote, and turn out on election day.
And volunteer to be poll watchers too. We need a lot.
Does Pennsylvania have a problem with that? Every place does, but do you guys have a pretty good record or what?
We have a good record of correcting it, where we've been poll watchers, and other people have done the same thing. But I think it's very important to get out and be poll watchers at every single precinct that we can possibly do it, and watch and keep the vote as honest as possible. I think that's so important.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Well, thank you. Pennsylvania Eagle Forum. Appreciate it. By the way, in case Sam is watching, our great friend Sam Lassant, he's a great TV host up in Dave's neck of the woods. And so we put that out just for him. If he's not watching, then tell him we're taking it down and not supporting him.
Sam looks forward to interviewing you again at the end of October.
We need to get up there. Good. All right. Well, Pennsylvania is a key state. And so thanks, guys, for coming in. All right. We're going to, now remember, Eagle Countdown.